Good morning and welcome to Tuesday, the second day of the week. And remember, Tuesday, that's technically, it was taken from another part of the language. It has nothing to do with the meaning of the number two, but nevertheless, it is the second day of the week. And here we are in Meditations in Hebrews. So let's jump right into the next four verses that we're considering today. Surely there's something somewhere in these verses that can kind of resonate with our spirit, and the Holy Spirit can use to transform our thinking and generate life in our spirit. Meditations in Hebrews, and we're looking at verses 5 through 8 today. It says, above the ark. Remember, we've already looked in the outer room. On the left side, little review. On the left side, the golden candle stand. It was basically olive oil lamps. It was made of 100 talents of gold, I believe. It was beaten into a sheet and formed, all of one piece of gold. There was oil that was placed in it under a special recipe, and one of the jobs of the priest was to maintain those oil lamps with oil and trimming their wicks and ensuring that they continued perpetually to be lit. They were originally ignited by the glory of God. The fire of God went and ignited them, and then it was the job of the priesthood to keep them going, to keep them supplied with oil. Above the ark, I jumped ahead. Golden candlestick on the left side, straight ahead, the altar of incense. Behind it, a thick curtain which covered you from being able to see the inner room, the holy place of all. On the right side would be a golden altar with a table of showbread, it was called, with 12 loaves that were made every day that were sprinkled with frankincense and spoke of the fellowship with each of the tribes of Israel that God desired. So the table of showbread to the right, straight ahead, the altar of incense, behind it a tapestry, a curtain, behind it the holiest place of all, where only the high priest could go. Once a year the high priest could go in there. On the left side, the 7 golden lamps, the lampstand there that supplied light for the holy place. So above the ark, so now we move into the holiest place of all, and there was sat the Ark of the Covenant. Above the ark were the cherubim of the glory. There were two cherubim. These are throne guardians, and they were looking down upon the atonement cover, and beneath it sat the jar of manna, the budding rod of Aaron, and the law that was given to man by God, and it had been inscribed on tablets. So there it sat in the holiest place of all. Here was the problem. Man could not keep the law. Man constantly broke the law. So it was an ongoing reminder that the dimension above, the heavenly dimension, the cherubim, also be called seraphim, the angelic realm, the realm of the watchers, they would see the brokenness of man. They were looking upon the fact that man could not keep God's covenant. So it was really an indictment, and it was something that required a reminder of atonement, to defer that payment one more year. that brokenness of man could not rise to the level of keeping the perfect law of God. So above the ark were the cherubim of the glory overshadowing the atonement cover. He goes on to say, but we cannot discuss these things in detail now. So either for the context of his discussion, it's not necessary to go into the detail of that, or it could imply that this timing was such that because of the Roman occupation and other issues, possibly after the destruction of the temple, that these things could not be talked about in detail. I think that it's the former, that rather than going to all the detail, because there's so much to talk about, he just touches it lightly. He just deals with the basics. When everything had been arranged like this, the priests entered regularly into the outer room to carry on their ministry. They had to do it twice a day. At least twice a day. They entered into the outer room to carry on their ministry. What a small elite group of men that could do that. Men only. They were of the tribe of Levi. They were descendants of Aaron. And they alone could enter into this place. And we find a descendant of Aaron, a Kohathite by the name of Zechariah, by the time of previous to the birth of the Christ. He walks around in this outer room, and he's intercepted by an angel as he's in this basically small room, carrying out this ministry. But only the high priest entered the inner room, and that only once a year, and never without blood. He brought in the blood of the sacrifice, which he offered for himself. That's a sobering idea. He has to remember that he himself is not innocent, but he himself is guilty. He offered that blood for himself and for the sins the people had committed in ignorance. So the people would bring their sacrifices, that blood would be collected, and then it would go in and be placed upon the Ark of the Covenant as a day of atonement, a reminder that all of the brokenness of man that broke the perfect law of God need to be deferred one more year. The penalty for that needed to be refinanced and put off one more year in waiting for the perfect sacrifice. The Holy Spirit was showing by this that the way into the most holy place had not yet been disclosed as long as the first tabernacle was still functioning. The way in. So it was a mystery. It was something that was given to them to point to something else that had not yet been fulfilled, that not yet had come to complete understanding for them. So as long as the first tabernacle was functioning, there was a lack of disclosure. There's something coming, something higher, something better, something newer, something more effective is coming. But as long as that first tabernacle is functioning, it doesn't yet disclose the next. What's it doing? All of this is pointing to Jesus the Messiah. He's coming as the great high priest, and he's coming to offer a sacrifice that is better than anything Aaron or his descendants have ever offered. That's what it's anticipating. That's what it's pointing towards. And this is what the inspired writer of the book of Hebrews brings to his people. There's something more, something higher, something better. And it's disclosed, it's partially disclosed, it's hinted at. In the way that the worship has been conducted and the way that the patterns were laid out in the first tabernacle. But if the first tabernacle is still functioning, there's no need and there's no moving towards the next tabernacle. That's where we find ourselves in some ways today. There is something better, something higher, something greater, and we're needing revelation. The people, the Hebrews, were needing revelation, and all of us are needing revelation of this great high priest, Jesus, our Melchizedek high priest, who takes us to the next level. So the Lord bless you. Isn't it great to be confronted with things that have been mysteries for millions of people for thousands of years, and they had a tendency to miss it, but by the illumination of the Holy Spirit, we get to be shown the way into the most holy place. The way is Jesus. In fact, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Aren't you glad you know him? Lord bless you as you dwell on that today. We'll see you tomorrow.